sex with dead people. You know, you put it like that, it sounds awful. It's really not that bad. Of course, you have to lubricate. But I think the biggest problem is the families. The families of the so-called dead. You'd think they'd let their loved ones rest in peace, enjoy the afterlife for a while. Instead, they've got to go passing all these laws. Keep your fingers off my Susie. Let my grandmother rest in peace. And Gerald. Oh, Gerald, you've defiled Gerald. Please. I knew Gerald when he was alive. If any man deserved defiling, it was him. He had a stick up his ass the day he was born. Ironically, when I made love to him, it was the least rigid he had ever been. He finally allowed himself, in my arms, to just relax. They say the dead have left their bodies, but that man was still inside him, let me tell you, and he loved every minute of it. Gay? Am I? No, I wouldn't say I am. There's too much stigma, I believe, too much baggage. In fact, I wouldn't be caught dead with another man. Of course, Gerald would. Yes, well. You know, I have slept with other people too, you know, mostly living. Of course, my ex-wife, well, let's just say the corpses gave off more heat than she did. You know, I've read the things the papers say, and you know, the New York Times claimed that I, quote, allegedly had relations with half a dozen corpses, maybe more, end quote. Half a dozen corpses. Where do I find the stamina? Meanwhile, the state of Arizona, on the other hand, has against me 4 counts of sexual misbehavior. 4. There's no 6, 7, 8, or 9. So why don't you get your facts straight, New York Times? I thought you were paid to write the truth. But who bloody cares about the truth these days? It's all sensation. Lies and hearsay, that's all it is. Gerald Standish, man, he was a man of science. He cared about the truth. Yeah, that's right. Let us get on with it, shall we? My first victim, if you believe the hype. Frankly, I don't believe she was a victim, but that's regardless. She was a vision. I confess, I don't know how scientific I was being in that whole affair. But when they first brought her in, I felt my lungs evaporate and the room light up with color. When I unzipped that bag, I knew she looked like one of my students. I saw such sadness in her cheekbones. I thought perhaps I could love her alive again, like Sleeping Beauty. For 2 whole nights I stayed up with her. I talked to her, got to know her. We were supposed to cut her up on Monday, so Sunday night I took her in my arms. It was very late. The janitor had finished up his rounds. I told him I was there to do some research. He just smiled and said, "Si, senor, si." I don't know why I felt the need to explain anything to him. I could have told him I was there to fuck that young woman, and he would have smiled and said, "Si, senor, si." No wonder I don't like the living. You can't communicate any more with the living than you can with the dead. In fact, with the living, it's sometimes harder. With Suzanne, she was in love with me. I remember climbing up on her. I felt this wave of nausea. Formaldehyde was... and her skin was unwelcoming. After all those nights I spent with her, 3 times I almost stopped. But when I felt my heartbeat pulsing in my veins and hers was not, I felt alive. For the first time in 20 years, I felt alive. Just me and my Suzanne. The next day we cut her up. In front of 20 students, I dissected my Suzanne. I peeled back the skin above her sternum and pulled apart her rib cage to reveal her heart. I lectured 20 students for 30 minutes on the inner functions of the human pulmonary system as I held her heart within my hand. And I never broke a sweat. Yes, yes, I always wore a condom. I taught my students well, you understand. Their methods of examination are quite thorough, so I couldn't have my sessions complicated by their... So I always wore protection. And when I was finished, I hosed them inside and out. I took the utmost care and precision with all of my patients, and that's why that fucking janitor is... desecration of a corpse, sexual misbehavior. They were there for science. I swear, if that janitor were here right now, I'd wring his bloody throat. And no, I would not have sex with this body. I have standards. 4 in the morning? What is he doing cleaning garbage at 4 in the morning? His shift is over at 2. I'm sorry. Sorry. I just couldn't believe it when he died, you know. Gerald, we had lunch together every Thursday. Every Thursday. He would talk and I would listen. He wasn't an attractive man. He was simply Gerald. But all he ever talked about was his research, the university. He wanted to be a part of it forever. You know, the irony is Gerald hated homosexuals. And then again, I never saw him with a woman either. I don't really know what he liked. I always just assumed he was in love with me. Not that he ever said anything about it, you understand? He never had the guts. You should have seen the look on the janitor's face when he walked in on us. When Gerald and I were... It was priceless. And I knew I should have stopped. I knew I should have... But I just couldn't help myself, you know. I just sort of waved at him and kept on going. I thought, what is he going to do, you know? He can't speak a word of English. I didn't know 911 had a Spanish translator. Bloody hell.